The snow began falling over Moscow, just as the lights on Tverskaya Street flickered on, one by one, like the city was exhaling after a long, tired year. Yelena Volkova sat by the window of a quiet restaurant, her gloved hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She was the kind of woman people noticed, without meaning to. Sharp coat, sharper eyes, the kind of stillness that came from running a company of 300 employees and never once raising her voice to do it. She did not need to raise her voice. People listened anyway, tonight though. She was not Yelena the CEO. Tonight she was just a woman, waiting for a man she had never met. It had been her cousin's idea. This blind date. Just one evening, Marina had said, laughing over the phone. It's Christmas Eve. Everyone deserves company on Christmas Eve, even you. Yelena had agreed mostly to stop the conversation, never expecting to actually sit here, alone, watching the snow collect on the windowsill, while the restaurant slowly emptied around her. The clock above the bar read 7:45. He was supposed to arrive at 7. She did not check her phone. She told herself she was not checking her phone, but her eyes drifted to it anyway, sitting silent and dark beside her teacup, and she felt something she rarely let herself feel anymore. Disappointment. Not sharp, not dramatic, just a quiet settling, like snow itself, soft and a little sad. The waiter approached for the third time. She could see the question forming on his lips before he even spoke. She lifted a hand gently. "A little longer," she said, and he nodded and walked away, and she returned to watching the street. She thought about leaving. She really did. There was a board meeting tomorrow morning, contracts to review, an entire company waiting for her attention. She did not need to sit in an empty restaurant, being stood up by a man whose name she barely remembered. Dmitri, that was it. Dmitri Sokolov, and yet she stayed. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the strange quiet of the restaurant, the candles burning low, the soft hum of a Christmas song coming from somewhere near the kitchen. Maybe, if she was honest with herself, it was that she did not want to go home to her apartment, where the only sound on Christmas Eve would be the heater clicking on and off, and her own footsteps on the hardwood floor. So she waited. At 8:15, the door opened, and a gust of cold air swept through the restaurant, carrying snowflakes that melted instantly in the warmth. A man stumbled in, breathless, his coat dusted white, his cheeks red from the cold. He was holding a small child's mitten in one hand, the kind a 5-year-old might wear, bright red with a snowman stitched onto it. He looked around the restaurant with wide, apologetic eyes, and when they landed on Yelena, something in his expression cracked open with relief and embarrassment, all at once. "Are you Yelena?" he asked, his voice unsteady, like a man who had been running for a long time and was only now allowing himself to stop. She studied him for a moment. He was not what she expected. His coat was worn at the elbows, a button missing near the collar. His shoes were soaked through from the snow, but his eyes, when they met hers, held something she recognized immediately, though it took her a moment to name it. Exhaustion. Not the fashionable kind people complained about over coffee. The real kind. The kind that lived deep in the bones. "I am," she said simply, "and you must be very late." He winced, sliding into the seat across from her, still catching his breath. "I am so sorry. I know I should have called. My daughter, He stopped, rubbing his face with both hands. "There was no babysitter tonight. The woman who usually watches her got sick, and I could not find anyone else on Christmas Eve, of all nights, and I did not want to cancel because that felt rude, so I brought her with me. And then she could not find her other mitten, and we looked everywhere, and then the metro was delayed, and he stopped himself, looking utterly mortified. "I am sorry. You probably want to leave." Yelena said nothing for a moment. She simply looked at him, this stranger with snow still melting in his hair, holding a child's mitten like it was the most important thing in the world. "Where is she now?" Yelena asked. "Your daughter?" Dmitri blinked, surprised by the question. "She's outside with my neighbor. Actually, Anya offered to wait with her in the car for a few minutes, while I came in to explain, to apologize properly before you left. You left a 5-year-old in a car in this weather." "The car is running," he said quickly. "It's warm, and Anya is with her. I would never—" He stopped, swallowing hard. "I know how this looks. A man who is over an hour late, talking about a daughter and a sick babysitter. It sounds like an excuse. I understand if you don't believe me. Yelena leaned back slightly in her chair. Outside, the snow continued falling, soft and steady, blanketing the parked cars along the curb. She could see, just beyond the window, a small shape pressed against the glass of an old sedan, watching the restaurant with the patient curiosity of a child who did not yet understand why the world sometimes moved so slowly and unfairly. "Bring her in," Yelena said. Dmitri stared at her. "What, bring her in?" she repeated. "It's Christmas Eve. No child should sit in a car while the grown-ups talk." For a moment, Dmitri did not move, as though he could not quite believe what he had heard. Then he nodded. Standing so quickly, he nearly knocked over his chair and hurried back out into the cold. Yelena watched through the window as he crossed the street, opened the car door, and lifted a small girl into his arms. The girl wore a yellow coat far too thin for the weather, and her dark hair was pulled into two uneven braids, the kind a tired father might make. In a hurry before leaving the house, Dmitri said something to the neighbor, who waved and pulled away, and then he carried his daughter toward the restaurant, shielding her from the snow with his body. When they came inside, the girl's cheeks were pink, her eyes wide with the particular wonder small children have when they enter somewhere new and warm and glowing with candlelight. "This is Sasha," Dmitri said, setting her gently into the chair beside him. "Sasha, can you say hello to Yelena?" Sasha looked at Yelena with the unfiltered honesty only children possess. "Are you Papa's date?" she asked. Dmitri's face went red. "Sasha, it's all right," Yelena said, and to her own surprise, she found herself smiling. A real smile, not the practiced one she gave at board meetings. "Yes, I suppose I am." "You're pretty," Sasha said matter-of-factly, the way children state facts about the weather. "Papa said you might not wait. He said important. Ladies don't usually wait." The table went quiet. Dmitri looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Yelena considered the girl's words for a long moment, watching the candlelight flicker across the white tablecloth. Then she looked at Dmitri, really looked at him, past the worn coat and the missing button and the exhaustion etched into his face. "Why did you think I wouldn't wait?" she asked quietly. Dmitri hesitated, his hands fidgeting with the edge of his napkin. "Because most people don't," he said finally. "After my wife passed, 2 years ago, things became difficult. I work nights at a warehouse outside the city. I pick Sasha up from her grandmother's most evenings, and some days I don't sleep more than 4 hours. I don't have much to offer someone. Not money, not time, not the kind of life people want when they sit down for a nice dinner." He glanced at his daughter, who was now happily inspecting the breadbasket on the table. "I almost didn't come tonight. I told myself you would understand if I cancelled. It would be easier for both of us. But you came anyway. Sasha told me to," he admitted, a small, tired smile finally breaking through. "She said Papa needed a friend. She picked out my shirt and everything." Sasha looked up proudly. "It's his nicest one." Yelena glanced at the shirt in question, slightly wrinkled, clearly not new, but clean and carefully chosen. There was something about the simplicity of it, the honesty of a man who had nothing to hide and nothing to perform, that struck her more deeply than any polished suit ever had. She thought of all the men she had met over the years, men with expensive watches and rehearsed compliments, men who asked about her company before they asked about her day. She thought of the quiet loneliness that had followed her home every night for longer than she cared to admit, the kind that no promotion or success had ever managed to fill. "I run a company," Yelena said slowly, as though testing the words. 300 people depend on me to make decisions every day. I have not taken a real vacation in 4 years. I eat dinner alone most nights, standing at my kitchen counter, because sitting down at an empty table feels worse somehow." She paused. "I think I understand tired, Dmitri, just a different kind." He looked at her then, not with pity and not with the practiced sympathy people often offered when they learned she was successful and alone. He looked at her like he simply understood. The waiter returned, and this time Yelena ordered for the table, including a small glass of warm milk with honey for Sasha, who declared it the best thing she had ever tasted, though Yelena suspected she had not tasted very many things in her short life yet. They talked through dinner, slowly, the way conversations unfold when neither person is in a hurry to impress the other. Dmitri spoke about Sasha's school, about the small apartment they shared near the edge of the city, about the warehouse job that paid the bills but left little room for anything else. He did not exaggerate his circumstances, nor did he apologize for them again. He simply spoke honestly, the way a man speaks when he has stopped pretending to be anything other than what he is. Yelena found herself listening more than she spoke, something that rarely happened in her life. Most conversations revolved around her decisions, her company, her time. But here, in this candlelit corner of a half-empty restaurant, she found herself genuinely curious about a warehouse worker's daily routine, about how he managed to braid his daughter's hair before 6 in the morning, about the small rituals that held their little family together. Sasha eventually grew sleepy, her head drooping against her father's arm, the warm milk and the late hour finally catching up to her. Dmitri gently shifted her, letting her rest against his shoulder, his hand absently stroking her hair the way parents do without thinking, an instinct worn into muscle memory. "I should get her home," he said softly, glancing at the clock. "It was nearly 10. I'm sorry again for tonight. For all of it." "Don't apologize," Yelena said. "I had a good evening. A surprising one, but a good one." Dmitri smiled, the kind of smile that did not try to be charming, only honest. "I didn't expect someone like you to wait. I think Sasha was right. Papa needed a friend tonight." "Maybe we both did," Yelena replied. They stood together near the entrance while the waiter brought their coats. Outside, the snow had thickened, turning the street into something soft and silvery beneath the street lamps. Dmitri carried Sasha carefully, her small body curled against him. Fast asleep now, her red mitten finally back on her hand. "Can I see you again?" Dmitri asked, his voice quiet, almost afraid of the question itself. "I know my life is complicated. I know I can't offer the kind of evenings you're probably used to." Yelena considered him for a long moment, the snow falling gently between them, dusting his shoulders and the sleeping child in his arms. "I don't want the kind of evenings I'm used to," she said finally. "I want this, honest, a little messy, and warm in a way I haven't felt in years." Dmitri's eyes softened, something like disbelief mixing with quiet hope. "Then yes, I would like that very much." They exchanged numbers carefully, his hands a little unsteady from holding his sleeping daughter and balancing his phone at the same time. Yelena helped, typing her number in for him while he held Sasha close, and for a brief moment, standing there in the falling snow, the three of them looked almost like something whole, something unplanned, but undeniably right. Before they parted, Yelena reached out and gently adjusted Sasha's mitten, tucking it snugly around her small wrist. The little girl stirred slightly but did not wake, murmuring something incoherent before settling back into sleep. "Merry Christmas, Dmitri," Yelena said softly. "Merry Christmas, Yelena." "Okay," he replied. "Thank you for waiting." She watched as he walked carefully toward the metro station, his daughter cradled against his chest, his steps slow and deliberate against the slippery pavement. The snow continued to fall, covering his footprints almost as quickly as he made them, as though the city itself were trying to erase the hardships of the day and offer a quiet, clean start. Yelena stood beneath the awning, a little longer than necessary, watching the streetlights blur through the falling snow, feeling something unfamiliar settle warmly in her chest. It was not excitement, not quite. It was something steadier, something that felt a little like hope, the kind that does not announce itself loudly, but simply arrives quietly and stays. She thought about her empty apartment waiting for her, the quiet kitchen counter, where she usually ate alone. Tonight, somehow, the thought did not feel as heavy. As she finally turned to walk to her car, she allowed herself one more glance down the street where Dmitri's figure was disappearing into the soft white night, his daughter safe in his arms. She smiled to herself, a small, private smile meant for no one else to see. Some people search their whole lives for grand gestures, dramatic declarations, fireworks against a night sky. But sometimes, Yelena thought, walking slowly through the falling snow, what the heart truly needs is much simpler. A man who arrives late but tries his best. A child who believes in second chances. and someone willing to wait, not out of obligation, but out of quiet, patient hope. The snow kept falling over Moscow that night, soft and steady, covering the tired streets in something clean and new. And somewhere beneath those quiet flakes, two lonely lives had unexpectedly found their way toward each other, slowly, gently, the way most good things in life truly begin.